discuss the part 2 of 3 of this particular presentation. So this is still a continuation of the language series and development like what I've presented to you before. So this is actually the second part. So what's up for today? So still our main focus will be to familiarize you guys with the language series in the field of linguistic studies and to reinforce good practices. Of course, in classroom practice, English language teaching, and of course, we will have to interrogate the limitations of these theories in terms of their soundness and validity. But basically, first, I want you to look at these following pictures or statements. Then we will not have a picture analysis because basically these are actually codes. So we will have to discuss these codes in class once we get to have the opportunity to have live sessions. But please take a look at them and try to, ponder on these statements. Statement number 1, there you have it. Please read. This is statement number 2. Statement number 2 says, to have another language is to possess a second soul. Well, basically, this is also true because there is one definite way on how we construct the particular grammar of a language. In a particular language, for example, when we feel hungry, how do we construct the particular thought into this language? So basically, each language have their own set of rules and syntax. So it's different. For example, when you speak Tagalog, of course, that's going to be VSO, verb plus subject plus object. But when you speak in English, it's going to be subject plus verb. So that's the structure of the language. So that's also true. And also, when you have a second language, which language do you use to speak about your thoughts, to speak about, your innermost thoughts, your heart? So if you use a particular language to speak out or to become more open, then probably that's the language of your soul. Okay, we also have a statement number 3. Please read it one time and then we can actually interrogate what you think about this. And this is statement number 4. A different language is different vision of life, ways of thinking, ways of looking. So in one particular language, you could actually, see the world from this perspective. We call it worldview. How you see the world or perceive the world using a particular language is what we call worldview. So in English context, how do we see the world? So basically, this is how it goes. Using metaphors, we create imagery, we create symbolisms, and we use these symbols to describe our thoughts in this particular language. And for example, in English, we say in the river. We also say on the road. This use of prepositions box the language in a particular semantic meaning. For example, it's like a bottle. So outside the bottle, inside the bottle, on the bottle, or something like that, or on the wall, something like that. So that's how we perceive language. Also in the Philippines, in Tagalog, we have what we call labas, lalim, and loob. Labas, lalim, and loob. For example, when somebody speaks about deep thought, or something like innermost thought, or hugot, we have those words. For example, we say, "Oh, ang lalim mo naman," o "ang lalim ha." So that expression signifies the way of looking at life, the way of expressing one's idea. So we have those differences in language. And this is statement number 5. So this is from the Bible. This is quoted from Proverbs 21:23. The one guarding his mouth and his tongue keeps himself out of trouble. So people would say when you speak less, you get to have less mistakes. But that's also true. But talking less is not always necessary. But if you are more cautious and if you think that what you are saying is right and if you are on the right side, I think we should not delimit what we give or share. Especially when we share important information, there must be no limit. But of course, we also have to practice restraint. Not everything must be said in general. Not everything must be, be open. And of course, we have to maintain a certain level of confidentiality and I would say self-disclosure, amount of self-disclosure. So we could only share innermost thoughts and secrets somehow to our friends or trusted friends and to our family members. And we don't, usually share intimate information about ourselves to the public or in the classroom. We don't do that. And the takeaway is that we have various ways on how to use language to encourage our students, and our ability to use the power of our words, the power of our encouragement to motivate our students, to give them intrinsic motivation, to give them compliments is really essential in the classroom, especially when we encourage them to speak their thoughts and then they try to speak their thoughts and they try to share what they think about a particular problem, what they think about a particular situation. That's exactly what we wanted to what we wanted them to have, or what we wanted them to do. So it takes a courage, or it takes courage for them to raise their hand and share their thoughts in public, and that their classmates would be listening to them. So we have to give them compliments. So how to give them compliment? Simply say, very good, oh, I like what you said. Giving such enforcements or positive reinforcements in the classroom would help the students to have more confidence to themselves and to speak. Okay, what about when a particular student had a mistake or error? So basically, what we have to say is that we should not really negate what they have said, or probably not to euphemize the words, or, you know, to correct them immediately. I think the best way is that instead of really objecting what they have said and blatantly saying that what their expressions are false or wrong, I guess we have to avoid such direct negative statements. I guess I would say it's better to say, oh, nice try. Well, thanks for trying. I would rather say, well, I like what you said, but can we please take a look at this angle? What about the others think about this problem? So basically, it's not about euphemizing the particular direct um, imposition of correction or feedback, but it's also about trying to strike a balance between respecting what would they feel, especially when they have committed something wrong or they have said something wrong. So I guess it is better to say nice try. It is better to say thanks for trying. Take a look at this. So there's one way on correcting their immediate feedback rather than just saying it's wrong. Okay, so in this particular lecture, we will have to take a look at nativist theories. What are nativist theories? So in language theories, there are four basic groupings of these language theories. That is, these are nativist theories, behavioral theory, cognitive theory, and interactionist theory. So to focus on nativist theory, it's important to look at the brain. Nativist theory believes that all language functions happen in the brain. So my first question is that, where's your brain? The answer is it's in my head. So what's in your brain? Actually, what's in the brain are neurons, brain cells. Yeah. So neurons or brain cells are actually the powerhouse of our brain. This is where information is restored. This is where how we store information from experience and from stimuli or from senses. This is where all the complex thoughts and processing are involved in the brain. So in nativist theory, it says that language happens or operates in the brain. So if you take a look at this picture, you would get to see that the brain is actually parted into parts, the left brain and the right brain. Or when we refer to the left brain, we refer to the left hemisphere, and right brain as the right hemisphere. So this is actually a top-down location. So where is the location of the brain that functions for language, or that stores or caters the functionality of language? So when we say language, the first letter is L, language. Therefore, the location of the language function is on the left brain. Okay, so partly here. So you get to see here the complex terminologies and symbolisms that use for logical thinking, use for creativity, use for rationality, and those are all associated with right brain functions. But right brain functions for creativity, and left brain functions for logical thinking and rationality. Okay, I repeat, left brain functions are for rationality, logical, and critical thinking. Right brain would be for creativity. Okay, so another illustrations that this picture. Okay, so you get to see here that the right brain is for creativity, the other one is for rationality or logic. Left brain has particular capacity to store knowledge or store information or process this important um, problem solving equations or problem solving problems or scenarios. So why is that important? Why is it so? Well, because hypothetically, LAD or the language acquisition device is actually located in the brain. Where is the LAD? Actually, it's here. That's the LAD. So we just have to get back to this particular drawing. What is LAD? Language stands for Language Acquisition Device. So this is a hypothetical tool in the brain proposed by linguist Noam Chomsky that allows human beings to learn a language. So since everyone has brain, everyone has the capacity to learn a language. Hypothetically, that's what's being proposed by Noam Chomsky, that in every person who has the capacity to think, they have the capacity to acquire language. But that's not really a part of the brain that is solely dedicated for language acquisition or language learning. This is just something, a theory that was proposed by Noam Chomsky. So who is Noam Chomsky? This is him. Okay, he's still alive. Yeah, he's still alive. He worked at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and I think he was also once affiliated at UCLA, University of California in Berkeley. So language functions is just hypothetical. So I just put a dot here right at the left part of the brain. So this is where you could actually, see these functions. Okay, so I want to share it to you in a bigger screen. So this is actually where the LAD is, but that's hypothetical. So you could actually place this particular dot anywhere elsewhere in the brain. But some neuroscientists would propose that it might be located somewhere else along the or in the left brain. So in his nativist theory, Noam Chomsky argues that children are born with the innate ability to learn a language. So any person has the innate capacity to learn language due to their hypothetical tool in the child's brain. But in the case of feral children, or what we call children who were deprived of social environments, who were deprived or be closed or had been caged, they were unable to learn a language. Okay, for example, feral children is actually cases of individuals or cases of children who were unable to have social contact with the outside world. What happened to them? They were intentionally caged and abused. No one talked to them. They were put in a room and they grew up from a certain age, like 5, 6, 8, or even like caged in a room for 14 years. Would you think they would be able to speak a language? No, since they didn't had the ability to have an access to imitate the language. They didn't had any human connections. They might have a guardian or probably a person who have feed them, give them food, but it wasn't enough. There was no stimuli to help them to learn the language or to imitate the language. So that is actually the case of feral children. We also have a case of Tarzan. Tarzan is actually a fictional character, but it was actually based on a particular fact. So there was a case of a child who was lost in the jungle. Then he was unable to have a contact with people for such a long time or years, and that he was able to be taken care by animals. So growing up in the jungle without access to human, he wasn't unable to produce language or learn a particular language, but learn how to survive in the jungle and learn sounds to produce sounds using animal sounds and communication. So that's actually true that even though kids or humans have the capacity to learn the language, if we don't have access to imitation, if we don't have access to speech communities, and we were caged and we were deprived of this basic human rights to have access to the real world actually, so we will be unable to learn language. Okay, so since we have the hypothetical device that we call LAD or language acquisition device, which is located in the right brain, so what do we have in mind? Then therefore we have to, you know, partly use these particular words. I use these words to have a better grasp of nativist theory proposed by Noam Chomsky. So it is believed that language is built in the left brain or in that part of the brain. So we have the innate ability or capability to learn a language. And every one of us are capable of acquiring or learning a language. Mind you that in first language acquisition, the term is acquisition. When a child is born and then they were try to grow up, of course, not try to grow up, they grow up. So that's when they start to learn a language. They mimic or they copy the words that their parents use. So when their parents are actually cursing or gumagamit ng mga masasamang salita, you would expect that these kids would actually mimic or copy the words that they could hear from their homes or in their environment. So, a nurturing and a pondering environment, an environment that is full of love and care to love to kids is actually better than, a house that is abusive, a house that, you could only hear screams and shouts and violence and verbal abuses, which is not really healthy. You would expect that a child would most like, use those characteristics of language because those are what he had been accustomed to. So you could see that when you're a teacher and then you are in the elementary, a particular style or idiolectic of a particular kid might reflect the household or background that they have, the family background that they have. You could also expect that when a child is raised in a particular institution like an orphanage, and there's no much interaction with humans, and there's only bullying inside the orphanage, you would expect that this child might be more aloof, will talk less and it's not engaging or it's not really friendly. So all of these, language production and characteristics might have been affected by their background or their social upbringing. Another thing is that we also have to bear in mind that since LAD is there, it's structured, so we have to use it. Okay, and it is physiologically designed. Okay, so since LAD is not really a real part of the brain that it's in there, like how we learn about cerebellum or cerebrum, midbrain, and cerebral cortex, it's not like that. That is just hypothetical. It's created. It's assumed to be true, as proposed by Noam Chomsky. But since it is anchored on physiological belief that our brain is programmed to learn a language, then therefore it's there. It is, we might not be able to locate it, particularly in the left brain, but it's there. Something in the brain is capable of storing or making that part of the brain function for language or accommodate the complex use of language. All right, so here is actually the reference for this particular lecture. Please check it out. So we will have to enhance more and simplify this lecture once we get back to our live sessions. All right, get in touch with me just in case you'd like to, ask questions. Thanks. Bye.